Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be learning how to draft a bustier with a yoke, just like the one in the picture. If you're new here, please do well to subscribe, like and share. Let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is to get our pattern paper ready, of course, and then we're going to start by marking our starting line. So as you can see, I'm marking 1 inches at the top, and that's where it's going to serve as the starting line. So after marking the starting line, what we're going to do next is to get our vertical measurement, which is our chest line, our bust point, our under bust, and so on. So the first thing that I'm going to do now is to mark out my bust point. The bust point I'm working with is 11. The bust point I'm working with is 11. So I'm just going to mark that out. And also the under bust I'm working with is 15. I'm also going to mark that out. And then the half length, that's the half waist, is 17. But I'm going to be adding 2 extra inches to it. So the half waist I'm working with now is going to be 19. So just watch as I do it. So here it is, we have our bust point, our under bust, and we have our half waist. The next thing we're going to do now is to measure our chest line, which is usually 2 inches upward above the bust point, and that is what I'm doing now. I'm going to measure 2 inches above the bust point to get our chest line, and I'm going to connect the lines. So now the next thing we're going to do is to get the shoulder line. The shoulder I'm working with is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. I'm going to be adding half inches seam allowance, so making everything 8.5 inches in total. So at the top, which is going to be the shoulder, I'll measure my 8 inches, and on the chest line, I'm going to come down and measure the same 8 inches I measured at the top, and then I connect the lines. We're also going to mark out the neckline. The neckline I'm working with is 4 inches. So I'm doing 4 inches by 4 inches. The width is 4 inches, the depth is 4 inches. And I'm going to use my ruler to connect it. So after connecting, the next thing I'm going to do is to get my shoulder slope. We all know our shoulders are not straight. So for the front pattern, we're going to come down by 1.5 inches. And then for the back, we're going to come down by 1 inches. So I'm going to take out 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to connect from my shoulder line, from my neckline to my shoulder slope. And then from the shoulder slope, I'm going to connect down to the chest line. On the shoulder, I like adding my seam, my joining allowance, so I will not forget. So I'm going to add half inches joining allowance at the shoulder, and then I'm going to connect it to the shoulder slope. You just have to do it. It's a choice though. If you want to cut out the pattern on the fabric, you can do it. But I prefer to do it on the pattern paper. So the next thing we're going to do now is to get our armhole curve. You're going to measure what you have from your shoulder slope to your chest line and divide it by 2. So I have 3.7. So I'm going to go in by half inches, and I'm going to use my ruler to connect it to get my armhole curve. Just watch as I do it. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 8 inches. Divided by 2 is 4 inches. But I'm going to add half inches extra allowance, that's seam joining allowance or seam allowance. So I'm going to measure 4.5 inches up to the bust point. I am going to stop at the bust point. Please take note. I'll measure 4.5 inches up to the bust point. So now we're going to connect those lines from the half waist up to the bust point, and then the next thing we're going to do is to connect from the bust point to our shoulder line. So on that shoulder line, we're going to divide whatever we have there by 2. So I have 4.5, that's about 2.25. So I'm going to divide it, and then you connect from the bust point to the shoulder line. The next thing we're going to do now is to do our under bust tightening. So I'm going to be taking out 2.5 inches from the under bust. Usually by the right side is usually bigger than the left side. So I'm going to take out 1.5 inches by this side, and then I'll take out 1 inches by the other side, making it a total of 2.5 inches. So 1.5 inches by the right and 1 inches by the left. So I'm also going to do the same thing on the half waist. I'm going to take out 1.5 inches and 1 inches on the other side. And after doing that, we're going to use our ruler to connect the lines. So for a bust 40 downwards, you can take out, like for a bust 34, 35, 36, you can take out 2 inches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come down by the bust point by half inches just to avoid sharp bust point. So now we're going to connect from the under bust down to that half inches we came down by. So the reason why we came down by half inches is just to avoid sharp bust points. So we're going to connect the under bust by the right, the center front, and also by the side front. So what we're going to do now, we're going to mark a new chest line because obviously we can't use 9. So I wanted to use 6.5 before, but I decided to use 7. So it depends on you. You can decide to use 5, 6, whatever you're comfortable with. Please use it. Do not just use the chest line I'm using alone because I used it. Use whatever chest line you want to use. So now we're going to measure our chest line, which is 7. I'm going to mark out 7 now. So now what we're going to do is over bust tightening. Whatever you took out from the under bust, just minus half inches from it, then you take it out on the over bust. So on that chest line, we're going to be measuring 2 because I took out 2.5 inches on the under bust. So here we're going to be measuring 2 inches. So we're going to spread it across. On the right side, we're going to take out 1.25, and on the left side, we're going to take out 0.75, making it a total of 2 inches. So on the center front 0.75, on the side front 1.25. So now we are going to connect it, as you see me doing, from the bust point. You're going to connect it to the over bust tightening we did. So you connect from your bust point and just use your pen to take out any sharp edges. As simple as that. So what we're going to do now, in the middle, I want to give it a sweetheart shape, a sweetheart neckline kind of shape. So I'm just going to use my ruler to just take out the shape. I don't want it to be too deep, so I'm just going to use my ruler to bring out the sweetheart neckline. So what we're going to do now is to measure from our chest line to our bust point to check if both sides is equal. So we're going to measure from our chest line to the bust point. Here we have 4.5. So we're going to measure the center front to see if we have the same 4.5. And as you can see, it is not up to 4.5. It is usually like that most times when we're done drafting. So whatever we have piecing there, we're going to add it. So I'm adding half inches at the top. If you don't do this, when you're done cutting, it will be short and it will not be equal. So we're going to connect it. So now we're going to connect it to meet the center front, the sweetheart neckline. So this is it. So now it is going to be equal when we're done cutting, and when we want to sew, we won't have any issue at all. So we're done with that. Now we're going to replace whatever we took out from the over bust to the side. So whatever we took out 2 inches from the other over bust. We're going to replace it here. If you do not replace it, when you cut it out on your fabric and finish sewing, you might have a shortage. So it is advisable to replace it. So now the next thing we're going to do is to start taking our horizontal measurements. We're going to start with the bust measurement. On the chest line, the initial chest line we measured, I'm going to measure the bust measurement, which is 41 divided by 4, that's 10.4. 10.5, I added 2.5 inches allowance. So we're just going to replace that on the bust point. Then on the under bust is 36.2. On fold divided by 4 is going to be around 9.1 or 9.2. I'm going to mark that out. And we're also going to replace what we took out, which is 2.5 inches. So we're going to replace the 2.5 inches, and then we're still going to add our 2.5 inches allowance. I love adding my allowance on my pattern paper. You might choose not to add allowance, no problem. You add it on your main fabric. So for the half waist is 38 divided by 4. That's around 9 point something. I've forgotten. Then plus 2.5 inches we took out, then plus 2.5 inches sewing allowance. I'm doing a voiceover, that's why I said I forgot. So we're just going to connect the lines together. and this is what we have. So now that we are done, let's go back to our chest line. You measure on this side. You see we took out around 1 inch, 0.9 inches. So we have to replace it. We are doing all this to avoid shortage. So we're going to replace whatever we have on that chest line. We're going to replace it by the side. So we have 0.9. I'm going to replace it and add 0.9 there, and then I'm going to connect it. So after connecting, we're going to connect the new armhole to the chest line. Do not forget we added the allowance we took out at the overbust. So we're going to connect the new armhole, and this is what we have, as simple as that. So we have our yoke, we have our yoke now, we have our center front, and we have our chest line. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to use pen to just blend it. So just use your pen, pencil, chalk, whatever, use it to blend it. You use it to blend it this way. Just watch as I'm blending it. It is quite easy. So you have a defined yoke now, and that's it. If you've watched up to this stage, thank you so much. Please do not forget to share, like, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and leave a comment. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut out the pattern we have drafted. Okay, so this is what we have after cutting. We have our yoke, we have the center front, and we have the side front. So now let's draft the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I've already placed my paper and I've marked out my lines. As usual, we have our starting line, bust point, under bust, and half waist. So we're going to start drafting by measuring our shoulder. So the shoulder is 16 plus half inches, which is 8.5. So now we're going to get our armhole line. We're just going to measure 8 inches. 8 inches for the armhole line. If you're done joining, if you have excess, you can always trim it off. So we're going to connect it, and what we're going to do next is to get our neckline. So the neckline we're working with is 4 inches. We're going to measure it. The depth for the back is 1.5 inches. It's not going to be deep. So you're just going to use your ruler to connect from your neckline to the depth. So the next thing we're going to do is to get our shoulder slant. So we're going to come down by 1 inches, and then we're going to connect it, and that's it. We have our shoulder slant. So now, what we're going to do next is to get our armhole curve. Measure whatever you have and divide it by 2. So we have 3.5, that's 7 divided by 2. Come in by half inches, and then you connect just like this with your ruler. And now we have our armhole curve. So now what we're going to do next is to add allowance, sewing allowance to the top. That's the shoulder line. You add your sewing allowance to it. If you like, you can add it to the main fabric. Now we're going to get our horizontal measurement. We're going to start with the bust line. So we're working with 41 divided by 4. That is 10.2. Then you add your sewing allowance. That's 2.5. We're also going to take our underbust measurement, which is our underbust measurement is 36.2 divided by 4, and then I'm going to add 2.5 inches sewing allowance. So please make use of your own measurements. For the half waist, my half waist I'm working with is 46.7 plus 2.5 inches sewing allowance. So now I'm going to use the ruler to connect each of those points together. So after doing this, we're going to get our dart. That is the next thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to divide our nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 4 inches, and then we divide it by 2 plus half inches allowance. From the bust point, we're going to measure it down, and then we're going to use our ruler to connect the line from the half waist to the bust point. So What we're going to do next is this. We're going to measure half inches on both sides on the half waist. So half inches on the left, half inches on the right, so making it a total of 1 inches. So we're going to measure that and we're going to connect it to the bust point. Connect it here like this on the half waist, connect like this, and also do the same thing for here. So after doing this, as usual, we're going to replace whatever we took out. 1 inches, we're going to replace it to the half waist, and then we're going to connect it straight to the top, to the bust point, to the chest line like this. So that is how you do it. So please pardon me guys, I forgot to include the zipper allowance. I'm using 2 inches zipper allowance on the pattern paper. So what we're going to do, when you're cutting it on your main fabric, please, you're going to move the pattern paper forward and let's add your sewing zipper allowance. So I'm using 2 inches. If you want to, you can use 1 inches or 1.5 inches. Do not go lesser than 1 inches, and that is if you're cutting a fabric that you're not going to add lining. So that's why I'm writing it on the paper. You add your 2 inches zipper allowance or 1 inch zipper allowance, and that is it. So now I'm just going to cut out the back pattern. Please and please do not forget to add your zipper allowance on your main fabric. And if you watch to this level, when you're cutting, you can add your zipper allowance to your pattern paper, but I forgot and I've already started drafting. So please do not forget to add your allowance to your main fabric, and if you can, add it to your pattern paper so you won't forget. So this is what we have. We have the back pattern and the front pattern. Thank you for watching till the end. See you on the next one. Bye.